to be able to tell me, how do you graph in slope-intercept form? That's the first thing. Second thing you need to be able to do, what is true about horizontal and vertical lines? You should be able to explain both things to me. Horizontal and vertical lines, I'm going to give you a little like mnemonic device, something to help you remember it. It sounds kind of weird, but it's HOY, H-O-Y, VUX, V-U-X. So when you hear me say HOY, VUX, I'm talking about this like acronym, which will help you remember what to know about horizontal and vertical lines. H-O-Y. The H stands for horizontal. Horizontal lines. If you have a horizontal line, we talked about this on Monday. Tuesday. Horizontal lines have a slope of what? Flat line like this. 0. This is 0 fun. So 0 slope. And horizontal lines are always going to be, when you write it as an equation, y equals some number. So, HOY, horizontal, 0 slope, y equals a number, because it crosses the y-axis. Vertical lines should have a slope. It's like this. What's a slope? Undefined. Think about slope, dude. And your equation should be x equals some number. Always when you write the equation. We're going to graph 2 lines. Y equals 4. That is y equals a number, so should it be horizontal or vertical? Should be horizontal. Here's another way to think about that. Y equals 4. That's on the y-axis, right here. The only way it makes sense to graph this line is so it goes through that point. So you have to do a horizontal line through that point because we want the y value to always be 4. It's got to cut through it. So y equals 4 is like this. HOY, horizontal, 0 slope, y equals 4. Make sure you have a horizontal line that is cutting through where y is equal to 4. Then x equals 3. That's x equals a number, so it should be horizontal or vertical. Vertical. You go to the x-axis at 3 and you plot a point. You have to have a line that cuts through that. The only way it makes sense to do that is a vertical line because then the x value is always 3. What does the m stand for in y equals mx plus b? What? Slope. Yes. M stands for slope. Another way to say this is the constant rate of change. They're the same thing. When I say slope, I mean the constant rate of change. When I say rate of change, I mean slope. Please keep in mind, it's not, okay, whatever number I see first in my equation, that's a slope. No! It's the number that's next to the x, because it happens over and over, adds or subtracts. You're looking for what number is next to x, that's a slope. What does b stand for? Do you remember? Good. The y-intercept, which you will also hear me call the starting point, just so you know. So it's like we have multiple names for each of these. The y-intercept is the starting point where you start on the graph, where you start in any kind of word problem situation. So, your examples here, we're going to identify the slope m and the y-intercept b of each. Y equals 3x minus 4. What is the slope, guys? 3, the number next to x. What's the y-intercept? Be careful. Thank you. It is negative 4. It is not positive 4. That sign does matter. I would recommend that you write this. You can rewrite this as y equals 0x plus 6. So now it might be a little bit more obvious. The slope is 0. This is a horizontal line. And the y-intercept is? Yep. Cool. The y-intercept is a number that's by itself, which you do not see. What could I add to this equation and not change a thing? 0. So this is called direct variation when you start at 0 and then have a slope from there. So your y-intercept is 0. It starts at the origin. If you don't see a y-intercept, it starts in the middle. So the steps I want you to write down. The first thing I want you to do is write the slope as a fraction. And explain what it means. Write the slope as a fraction and explain it. 2. Write the y-intercept as a point, because that's what it is. And then graph it. So step 1, write your slope as a fraction and explain it. Step 2, write your y-intercept as a point and graph that. Last thing, step 3, do the slope to the right from the y-intercept. That's where you'll start. And then reverse. Get started. The slope, we're doing y equals negative 3x plus 4. Class, what's my slope? Negative 3. And you need to write it as a fraction. How can I make that into a fraction? Cole? Yep. Put a 1 underneath. Now it's fraction. Write your slope as a fraction and explain what it means. That's the first thing I want you to do. This top number is the vertical change, up or down. So this is a nice negative slope. Well, slope, dude, go up the mountain or down the mountain? Down. This top number means that you should go down 3 because it's nice negative, and that top number is vertical change. The bottom number, slope dude, always skis to the right. And so I know that your previous teacher may say like, okay, down 3 over 1, down 3 over 1. Here's the problem with that in my experience. I have some students who don't know what over means because it doesn't say what it means. So they go down 3, left 1, which is incorrect. So I want you to write down 3, right 1, because you should always start by going to the right. When you reverse it, you go to the left. But this means go down 3, right 1, down 3, right 1. Okay, the y-intercept as a point. What number is my y-intercept? It's, whoa, same problem. 4. Okay, the y-intercept is 4. 0, 4 is the point. So when I say write it as a point, I literally mean write 0, 4. And now, graph it on the y-axis. Right there. So starting from the y-intercept, I need to go down 3 squares, right 1 square. And do it again. Down 3, right 1. Keep going as far as you can. But a line goes forever in both directions, so you need to go back to the y-intercept and reverse it. You will go up. So go back to your y-intercept, the one in red, and go up 3, left 1. This is a line. Make it a line. You have to connect the points. This is continuous. This is an equation. Oh my goodness, I don't want that. I was trying to get a line. That's better. Okay. Make sure it has arrows because it goes forever in both directions. Speaking of arrows, since it goes forever to the left and forever to the right, what's the domain? All real numbers. And it goes forever up, forever down. What's the range? All real numbers. What's the slope? Y equals 2/3 x minus 1. 2/3. Write your slope as a fraction. Now we will explain what it means. This is a puff, puff, positive slope. The slope would go up or down the mountain. Up. The vertical change then should be up 2. The horizontal change, slope would always skis to the right. Right 3. Okay. The y-intercept is what number? -1. Write it as a point. 0, -1. And go ahead and graph that on the y-axis. Some of you will graph it on the x-axis. Please make sure it's graphed on the vertical axis. Right there. 0, -1. The slope goes up to right 3. Last step, graph the slope to the right as far as you can go. Up to right 3. Do a point. Up to right 3 again. Then go back to the middle and reverse it down to left 3. Down to left 3. Make it a lovely little line that's continuous with arrows because it continues forever. Make sure I see your points. If you just drew in a line on your graph, on your notes, that's not going to work with me. I have to see the points. What's the domain? Forever left, forever right. All real numbers. I'm going to do the fancy R this time. Range is all real numbers again. Those mean the same thing.